Hi there, and welcome to my channel about life in Germany. My name's Kai, and I relocated to Germany from the US about 5 years ago. Today, I'd like to share 5 tips that can help you fit in like a local here in Germany. Los geht's! The first tip I have might help you keep a lower profile here and not draw unwanted or negative attention. It has to do with staring. Lately, I've seen comments online from some Americans complaining that Germans are always staring at them. I personally haven't experienced this, but I think I might know where some of this is coming from. Despite the common stereotypes about Germans, many people here tend to be a lot quieter and more reserved in public compared to what is typical in American culture. And this contrast is definitely something that I've noticed more the longer I've been here. You can really hear a difference in speaking volume of Americans who have been living here a while versus some of the American tourists who come to visit. Honestly, you can hear some visitors coming from quite a distance. This is especially noticeable when taking public transport. Though I have to admit that even after living here for 5 years, I still catch myself talking a bit too loudly sometimes too. I guess old habits die hard. But if you notice you're getting lots of unwanted stares, it might mean you've missed some subtle, or maybe not so subtle, cultural differences. It's really not so surprising that if you do something that Germans find really unusual or rude, like talking too loudly on your phone in public places, people will probably notice. So, if you find people staring and you'd rather that they didn't, it's probably a good idea to consider whether you might be breaking any unspoken cultural rules. Now, I live in Berlin, a city that's pretty different from most German cities. There's a lot of diversity here and more acceptance of different ways of doing things. So I think Americans are less likely to get stares here than in other German cities. Still, if you want to be more like a local in Germany, my first tip is to try to keep your voice down. Unless you want to get more attention, of course. Another thing you should know about German culture is that it's generally much more laid back and relaxed than American culture. In Germany, things just move slower. It's pretty common here that you'll have to wait for things that happen much quicker in the US. For example, some of the more common modes of communication in the US are approached a little differently here in Germany. Like if you send an email here, you definitely should not expect an immediate response. It could take several days or sometimes even more before you hear back. There have even been times where it took a whole month for me to get a reply to an email. And there were other times where I never heard back at all. Believe it or not, you actually might get a faster response by snail mail. Germans really seem to love sending mail. But what if it's something super important? Well, the best thing to do then is to simply make a phone call. I find I almost always get more accomplished here in Germany if I just make a call. Of course, this can pose a problem if you don't feel comfortable speaking in German. But anyhow, it helps to just accept that everything here will take a little longer. Keep in mind, this applies to many other things besides email too. For this reason, my second tip is just to expect things here to take longer. Don't worry, things will still get done, just not on the kind of schedule you might be used to. Patience here is your friend. My next tip is all about watching where you walk. And this isn't just about safety. This can actually help you fit in here. What exactly do I mean? Well, first of all, it's probably best that you don't jaywalk here. Most Germans will not cross at an intersection until the crosswalk signal is green. They will just stand and wait patiently, even if there aren't any cars in sight. Of course, this isn't always the case in Berlin, but it's definitely a thing in most German towns and cities. It's also considered especially rude to cross at a red light if there are any kids around. You don't want to set a bad example for the children, do you? Anyways, another thing you need to be sure of is that you aren't walking in a bike lane. This can really irritate bicyclists here, and many of them are not shy about letting you know. When you're walking on the sidewalk, just watch out for colored pavement or paths and be sure you don't accidentally walk on them. Also, be sure to look out for bicyclists before you cross the bike lane. If you really want to fit in like a local, it's probably best not to piss off the bicyclists. Another place here where you need to watch where you're walking is on streets or plazas with streetcars. This suggestion is not so much about fitting in, but about surviving. I've mentioned this before, but I think it bears repeating since most Americans are not used to seeing streetcars in cities. Many German cities have streetcars that go through areas that don't have any pedestrian signals. So be sure to keep your eyes open for streetcars and their tracks on streets and plazas, because otherwise, this can catch you off guard. By being aware of your surroundings and knowing what to look out for when it comes to crossings, bikes, and streetcars, you'll stay safe and you'll also be able to fit in like a local. Okay, this next tip comes with a little anecdote. When I visited Germany many years before I moved here, I was riding a streetcar in Munich. The streetcar was an older model where you had to climb some stairs to enter. It was pretty busy and I was standing near the door since there weren't any seats available. The streetcar came to a stop and the door opened. Right in front of me, there was an elderly man struggling to get into the streetcar because of the steps. But I just stood there, not knowing what to do, just waiting for some signal. This is because in the US, it's usually best to wait and see if anyone asks for help before getting involved, because otherwise, some people will get very offended and upset. Anyways, as I was deciding what to do, a woman next to me gave me a dirty look and said, "Well, if you aren't going to help this man, the least you can do is hold my ice cream." She then shoved an ice cream cone into my hand and helped the old man get into the streetcar. I felt terrible, but I learned something super important about German culture that day. In Germany, people look out for one another. If you drop something, someone will help you pick it up. If you look lost or confused, someone will ask if you need help. And if you're elderly or disabled, people will offer their help and they'll gladly give up their seats on public transportation. So my fourth tip for fitting in here is to always be prepared to help others. Now for my last tip, I want to focus on something a little more fun. As you may know, here in Germany, it's legal to drink beer in public. So if you like beer, I encourage you to take advantage of this and grab yourself a cold one, just like the locals do. Feel free to take it with you on a nice stroll through town or even out to a local park. That's something that's pretty much forbidden in the US, but here in Germany, no problem at all. Prost! Alright everyone, I hope these tips have been helpful, and I hope they'll make you feel more comfortable when visiting or living in Germany. Oh, and I hope you enjoyed this video too. If you haven't already, please take a moment to like and subscribe. That's it for now. Tschüss, bis später!